Your robot. You should keep that in there.
Okay. Well, hello there. So it has been a while since I've recorded anything. I used to do the Tuesday tidbits semi-regularly, actually pretty regularly for about a year. And I just kind of took a break from that for the summer because I was getting a little burnt out. And just the constant putting out a video every week was a little much. So I needed a break, but I promised you that I was going to do some long form content, and I had told you I had a couple ideas in mind that I wanted to, some subjects I wanted to look at, and well, here we are. That's what we're doing today. So I have my daughter here with me, my daughter Ella, and I'll just introduce myself. My name is Scott Seppala. I'm a pastor, a Lutheran pastor in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, where it is always winter and never Christmas, as they say. No, the UP is a great place to live. And I've lived here for, it's how long now, Ella?
Like 6 years.
Yeah, going on
Ish.
6 years. October will be 6 years since we've lived in the UP. I moved here from New Hampshire. I was born and raised in Ringe, New Hampshire. Lived there my whole life. I used to be in the construction trades. I had a business. We did roofing and siding, and that was kind of my life before I got into the ministry. And then I started lay preaching back in a long time ago.
Yeah.
2014, I think. I was a lay preacher at the church I was attending in New Ipswich, New Hampshire. And then I felt a call to come to seminary and be actually trained and educated in a theological school. So I moved here to Michigan, and I attended the Inter-Lutheran Seminary for 4 years. And I did a pastoral internship while I was in seminary. And then a year and a half ago, I graduated and I moved to Negaunee, Michigan, where I am now, in my first call. So I'm pastor of the Eastwood Apostolic Lutheran Church. And actually, we're changing our name to the Eastwood Lutheran Church, just taking the apostolic off the name. And there's a specific reason for that. And I think I might do a whole episode on that. But for now, that's who I am. I'm the pastor of this church. And I'm married. I have 7 children. I have my oldest kid here with me, Ella. She's my only daughter, or our only daughter. My wife is Isla. And yeah, we have 7 kids. Ella's here. I'll let her tell you about herself.
My name's Ella Seppala. I'm his daughter, and I'm not a pastor. I don't have a job.
Wait, you're not a pastor?
No.
They're never gonna know that.
No, they never would have guessed. Never in the world.
You're a pastor.
Yeah, I have to let them know. I'm not even employed yet. I'm going into my junior year in high school, and I have 6 younger brothers.
Okay,
And
you
the
said that
oldest.
kind of a certain way. Like, how do you feel about the 6 brothers?
They're a lot sometimes, but it's all fun. All good fun.
Yeah. And you are how old, did you say?
I'm 16, and I turned 17 in November.
Yeah, so she brings the kind of the teenager element to this. She's got a lot of questions, I'm sure, and I think you do. Do you have questions?
Yeah, I think so.
So we don't really have a plan here, but we're gonna. Okay, let me kind of explain how I got this idea to do this sort of a podcast. So our family has this little tradition that we developed, I guess, beginning of last year, at the beginning of the school year. Every night during the school nights, we sit in the living room and we just take turns going around the room, and each person gets 2 minutes to tell us about their day. We all do it, even me and Isla do it. And it's been really good. Do you agree, Ella? Has
Yeah,
it been,
it is. It's a nice way to unwind at the end of the day.
just kind of process your day together. And it's been a really a time when our family gets more connected. I would recommend doing it. If any of you are looking for ways to help with your relationships in your family and bring yourselves closer together, definitely do something like that. But anyway, I'm leading up to something. When we did that, we had this 2 minutes to tell us about our day thing. It kind of sparked a lot of conversations, and
Yeah.
a lot of times they were really interesting. And especially with the older kids, a lot of times what we'd end up doing is putting the younger kids to bed, and then the three oldest would stay up way too late past their bedtime, and because we were talking about some topic that they were just
Mm.
thirsting for knowledge and information about some random subject. And so, I mean, we've covered a lot of different subjects last year in the school year. What are some of the topics that have come up?
Well, we talked a lot about history and like quantum physics and evolution, other church denominations, and like hymns and songs and stuff has been a recent one.
Yeah, those are all things that I think are just fun to explore. And I've found as a pastor, it's fun to explore it through my kids and through people who are like sort of just learning this stuff and sorting it out for themselves, because it's so good to be forced to actually answer the basic questions about like a subject where you have to start from square one and you have to sort of deal with the basic things. Like, for example, Ella likes to come home from church with a whole list of questions for me, about like the songs we sing or something. Like, I think one of the questions she had was, Dad, what does betwixt mean? Because we sang that in one of the songs. It said something about betwixt. So what
Betwixt
does
man
that
and
mean?
God or something.
And then, or she might have a question about like the message of the song. And usually it's an old hymn, because the hymns are not always easy to follow, like what they're saying. And
Mm-hmm.
so it'll be like a question on like, what is this even saying? I don't get this. So we sort of sit down and we go through it together. And I've learned a lot doing that. And I really appreciate those kind of things. So anyway, that's the goal for this podcast. I'm not sure if we're going to do more episodes. I guess we're going to just test this out and see how it goes. But I think there's a lot of things we could cover, and I sort of wanted to bring you guys in, like pretend we're sitting in our living room having one of these nighttime talks, and let you listen into it. And I think that a lot of the things we talk about and explore together will be the things that you guys are interested in as well. So, yeah, with that being said,
Yeah.
Ella, do you have
Pressure's on.
any ideas? Yeah, no pressure.
Well, I was just thinking about like non-denominational churches and like how do they decide like what they believe on like baptism and not I almost said communism. I meant communion.
Okay, good question. Yeah. So, first of all, we need to figure out what a non-denominational church is. Well, we need to define that, right? So, what is that? What's a non-denominational church?
Yes, I think of like a community church where it's a mix of all sorts of different people, and they don't like identify as Baptist or Lutheran or Catholic. They just all go
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, not connected to a denomination. I
Mm-hmm.
think we need to know what a denomination is actually, because a non-denomination is
The
just
opposite of
yeah,
denominational.
the negative side of that. So, what is what is a church denomination? I think a denomination is just a name, actually. Probably the best example I can think of off the top of my head is like, if you open your wallet, if there's happens to be any money in there, which doesn't happen a lot for me, but the the bills in there, right? How do you tell the difference between the bills? One bill from another.
They're like they have different numbers on them and different presidents' faces.
Yeah. So the term that's used actually for currency, for money, is denominations. So like the denomination of tens and the denomination of 20s and 50s and whatever. So you kind of have the different denominations, the different names of the bills, and each one represents a different thing and different amount of purchasing power and blah, blah, blah. So we could go down economics here. But so to bring that into churches, though, yeah, what's a denomination with a church? Denomination is really just it's a name, yes, but it's also, there's something behind the name. Like a church denomination tells you what the church believes, generally speaking.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the churches that are part of denominations, to name a few of them, we have, well, Roman Catholic, that's a church denomination.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask them, they would say they're the real church. Then you also have Eastern Orthodox, which they are also consider themselves the only church. And then you also have Lutheran, which we're
Mm-hmm.
Lutherans, and so we're a denomination. You have Anglican, you have Episcopal, you have Methodist, you have Baptist, you have Pentecostal, Calvinist, Wesleyan. Oh man, there's a lot of church denominations, right? Yeah. So, but each church denomination has like a different set of beliefs. So they have like a main thing they believe. So, and the church denomination just tells you like what they believe. You generally know that if you're dealing with a Baptist, let's say, Baptists practice what? Do you know? This is a good
baptism.
Yeah, adult baptism. Yeah, so that's kind of like one of their main things, adult baptism. Another thing that Baptists are big on is like they believe in what's called decision theology. So like you need to make a decision for Jesus. At some point, every person who's going to be saved needs to have made a choice to be saved and accept Jesus. And they have free will. And there's all kinds of things like that they stress in their teachings. So that's just Baptist, but then you have like, pick another denomination. Catholic, Roman Catholic. Yeah, if you're a Roman Catholic, you're gonna kind of like consider yourselves the historical church. So you're the ones who are tracing your heritage and your history all the way back to the time of the apostles. And that's the big thing for Catholics, is they believe in something that they call apostolic succession. So have you ever heard of that term?
No.
Any idea? What does it mean? Does it mean the apostles are successful?
No. It's
Which,
like passing
oh yeah,
down.
speaking of apostles, I got a good apostles joke.
Oh.
So in the book of Acts, it says that it tells us what car they drove. Yeah, did you know that?
No, they don't drive cars.
It says that the disciples were, actually, let's look it up. They were all in one accord. So they had
a Honda Accord.
They had a Honda Accord. Anyway, apostolic succession. It just means that they can trace their kind of history all the way back to the apostles. And so that's kind of their big deal, is they think they are the ones who are the historical church. So like if you see a church, first of all, you look at a Catholic church and you look at a Baptist or whatever, some other kind of church, and you're gonna notice like big differences just from the architecture of the building. It kind of tells you like what they're all about.
Oh, like how Jehovah's Witnesses don't have any windows.
Yeah, that's Jehovah's Witness is an interesting thing, and I think we'd have to do a whole thing on that, because that's like actually questionable whether they're not Christian technically, because they have some issues with the Trinity and they don't believe in the Trinity. Let's get back to the initial question though. What was it?
How do non-denominational churches like decide what they believe?
Aha. So that is an excellent question. And now that we know what denominations are, so non-denominational churches are churches that don't really have an interest in being part of any of these historic denominations like Lutheran or Calvinist or whatever. They're like, we don't want to be locked down to a name and a certain set of beliefs, which is really what a denomination does, is it gives you like a core doctrine. that you hold to. They say, well, we would rather just make our own, like, and have our own statement of faith and have it be like church specific to what we believe. So I think we're getting around to the answer of the question: how do non-denominational churches decide what they believe? Now, you got to understand, I'm not in a non-denominational church, so my answer is probably not going to be too solid. You'd have to ask one of them. But my impression of it, and from the church history and stuff that we've gone through in seminary and the reading up on it that I've done, is the church kind of has a set of beliefs that's, I guess, sort of formed by the church itself. Like, they come up with it, and generally speaking, and I'm going to go out on a little limb here and say that most of these non-denominational churches are basically Baptist. Like, if you looked at like the core beliefs of most Baptist churches, a non-denominational church is going to really fit very well with a Baptist church. They're going to usually have adult baptism. They're going to believe in like making a decision for Christ. A lot of these things that a Baptist church will hold to. Another thing that they tend to not do is have any, like, what's called a confessional subscription. So in other words, like, for Lutherans, we have what we call the Augsburg Confession. So it's like there's 28 articles in it, and it's basically what Lutherans believe in a nutshell on a few pages. You can read through it in 15 minutes or so. And it's kind of like, it boils it down to like the core of what Lutherans believe. And that's called a confession. You'll have like Reformed churches will have what's called the Westminster Confession. So that's their confession of faith. The Catholic Church has various like things that they use for their teaching and what their doctrine is. And so denominations generally will have some sort of a confession of faith like that. Baptist churches generally don't, and non-denominational churches, that's one thing that really sets them apart, is that they don't have a confession of faith usually. They usually say that we believe in the creeds, but then their confession of faith is very, very loose, and it can be different from church to church. I don't know if that answers the question. Hopefully that satisfies.
They're basically Baptist, but without the label.
Yeah, and I hesitate to say that because there's somebody that's going to be offended by that and say, well, you're saying that we're Baptists or whatever, and is Baptist a bad word and all this stuff? And it's like, well, no, it's not a bad word, but it's kind of like, I'll share my opinion on the whole thing is, I think it's a little bit, I just don't like it. I don't like the idea of non-denominationalism because it really doesn't tell you a lot about what the church believes right up front. And I find that denominations are actually helpful because you kind of know, if you're going to like a Lutheran church, that they're going to practice infant baptism. They're going to have like a certain view of the sacraments, the baptism and the Lord's Supper and confession and absolution. Like, you kind of have an idea what they believe. And there's a standard that they're trying to hold, where you don't really have that with a non-denominational church. It's a little bit more like loosey-goosey with the you like that term. So yeah, with their theology, it can sort of change depending on who's in leadership and things like that. And so I guess to go back to my analogy of like the dollar bills, right? You have a $1 bill, a $5 bill, 10, 20, so on, and 100 if you're really rich, but not me. No. So anyway, so you take those, and that's denominationalism, literally, because they call currency denominations. If you were to take a check, now you probably don't know what a check is because
I do.
You're young. So what's a check?
It's a piece of paper.
How does that? No, but how does it work? How does a check work?
Yeah, it's like a written thing that you exchange in, and it like gives the bank authority to like move money from one person's account to another person's,
Yeah.
like
So
without
how
actually having
about
to take
this?
money
How
out.
about if I take a check out of my checkbook and I sign it and I hand it to you and you take it? How much is that worth?
Well, if you didn't put any numbers on it, nothing.
Okay. It's worth nothing. But what if you decided to put numbers on
Well, that's not really fair to you. I'm just deciding how much money I'm taking from
it? Exactly.
like,
No,
I'm stealing your
and
money.
and this is probably oversimplifying how non-denominational churches work and comparing them to denominations, but I do think it
Mm-hmm.
runs the risk of things being a little open-ended with the teaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like anyone who fired up a church on any street corner, you can have any set of beliefs. Literally, you can like write any number in the check box and say this is this amount, and you just decide right there. So like,
Mm-hmm.
can you see the difference though, like between a blank
Yeah.
check and a denomination? Like it's spelt out. You know what
Yeah.
this one is. This one's like you don't
It's
know.
whatever you want
If
it
I
to be.
handed a blank check, she might think, "Wow, he didn't give me anything."
Or
Then she might proceed to go and write some
crazy
crazy
number
number
down.
and bounce the check or whatever. So probably not the best analogy to use, and I'm sure it has flaws. But the point is, that's the difference, I
Mm-hmm.
think, as I see it. And I think that's one of the risks you run with going with a non-denominational church.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm very unashamed to be called a Lutheran, because I've
Mm-hmm.
looked at the Lutheran teaching and I've studied it. I've read through the Book of Concord and I've studied what Luther taught and everything, and I'm like, this is what the Bible says, And so I'm very comfortable being a Lutheran because all it is telling you what the Bible said, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's why I appreciate denominationalism and being a Lutheran, and I also appreciate like Calvinists and Baptists and all the different denominations. But technically, Baptist is not a denomination, but we can get into that
Oh.
in a little bit. Yeah, they're a convention, so they're like sort of like halfway in between non-denominational and
Oh.
denominations.
That makes
So
sense
yeah,
then.
Baptist churches are like, it's hard to actually tell what a Baptist believes. Um, and I
Uh-huh.
think it's like sort of Baptists were like sort of the beginning of non-denominationalism, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I might be wrong, but that's what I think. So anyway, what was I saying? I forgot what I was saying.
Uh, well, you can appreciate
Yeah,
them.
I can appreciate other denominations as well. I can appreciate Calvinists because I know what they believe. I disagree with them, especially on predestination and some other
Mm-hmm.
issues, but I can appreciate the fact that they're actually like forthright in just saying what they believe. Like, this is what we stand for and believe. We think the scripture is saying this. It doesn't hide anything from people. And now, some of the criticisms of denominationalism is that it divides Christianity up. It's like, well, we're the
Yeah.
Lutherans, we're these people and those people, and we have all these different beliefs. And so now we've divided Christianity up. And when we read in First Corinthians, Paul wrote a whole letter to the church about not being divided and saying that Christ can't be divided. And now we're over there making these different brands of Christians and we're dividing a thing up and we shouldn't do this. And so that's the criticism of doing denominations. But the thing is, it's not any better to be non-denominational.
Yeah.
At least when you have a denomination, you have a starting point for a conversation. Now, denominationalism is bad if all the different denominations never talk to each other. Then I can agree. Then you're
Mm-hmm.
dividing up Christianity. But where it's helpful is where you keep the conversations going. And so where I'm a proud Lutheran. I stand for what Lutherans believe because I believe that's what the scripture's saying. But I'm very willing to have conversations with other denominations. And so can you see what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
it's just a starting point for a conversation. It's very helpful to know when I come up to a Calvinist, it's helpful for me to know like kind of where they're coming from.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes any sense,
I
but
think so.
went on denominationalism. Is there any other things you got that you've some burning questions that you've just been wondering for your whole life?
My whole life. I usually ask questions I have, so I don't think I've had any I've wondered for my whole life. Besides, like, yeah, did Adam and Eve have belly buttons? But we can't answer that. And we won't
no,
know.
not did Adam and Eve have belly buttons. Come on, we can't go there. Oh man, that's awful. No, that is
awful.
it is a good question. Maybe I don't like it because I don't know the answer. I just don't know. Scripture doesn't say. Did the first trees have rings in them?
Oh, that's a good one too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we just don't know. Okay, what other things have you ever wondered?
Well,
let's go on more on denominations. You must have more questions about that.
Oh, Seventh-day Adventists? Is that like a type of Christian, or is that like a Jehovah's Witness, just like one off to the side?
What's the question? Are Seventh-day Adventists what?
Are they like Jehovah's Witnesses where they're just like not really Christians?
Okay, I wouldn't say Seventh-day Adventists are not Christians. No, they are Christians. So Seventh-day Adventists were started by a lady by the name of Ellen White. Yeah, she was really the founder of Seventh-day Adventists. And it really started in the mid 1800s, I think. I'd have to get my history book out to read up on it again, but yeah, it's like a whole thing where really what was going on in American Christianity at the time is there was like a lot of crazy people running around like saying that they knew when the world was going to end and stuff. And I just remember in one of the books I was reading about it, it was like they had at one point they had set a certain date when they said the world was going to end on this day and Jesus was going to come and there was going to be like a rapture and all this stuff. And there was actually people who were going up on top of a hill and they were trying to like jump. They were jumping up. And then there were some people that like put logs and they'd stand on the log and they'd jump to try to get higher to try to like hurry up the rapture so they could go because they were certain that Jesus was coming that day. And that was sort of I guess the context of where Seventh-day Adventists came from is that kind of crazy environment of like end time stuff. So like whenever you hear something about Advent, you're thinking about Jesus coming, either his first coming or his second coming. Well, so Seventh-day Adventist is talking about the second coming of Christ. So they're big on end time stuff, and they believe certain things about the end times. Another thing that's interesting about Seventh-day Adventists is they have like all kinds of rules about their diet and stuff. Like they can eat certain things, they can't eat other things, and like.
Is it like scripture based?
It is, yeah. It's from the Old Testament, so they've gone back to a lot of the Old Testament teachings.
So can they not have like splitted calf meat or splitted hooves or whatever?
Okay, yeah. From like in Leviticus, where it talks about they could eat certain animals with like a split hoof and whatever.
Yeah.
They can't have pork. I don't know. I'd have to look into that again, what exactly they can eat and can't eat. But I know they have some dietary laws they follow. And then one of the biggest things, and that's why seventh day, is they worship on Saturday. So they've returned to a lot of Old Testament stuff, which is kind of interesting. But yeah, it's in my opinion, it's very problematic because it goes to the Old Testament that a lot of the things that were done away with. If you read the book of Hebrews, it talks about like the Old Testament law and the things that Jesus fulfilled. And so the Old Testament is done away with. Meaning it's fulfilled in Jesus. Like we're not under all the Old Testament laws anymore, including the Sabbath and the dietary laws and the sacrifices. Like we don't have a temple and we're not killing animals. Jesus was the fulfillment of all that stuff. And so in my mind, Seventh-day Adventists, it's like a departure from understanding that everything's fulfilled in Jesus. It goes back to the Old Testament, and it puts burdens on people
that they don't even need to carry.
They don't need to carry. Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of a Seventh-day Adventism. A little bit about that. Yeah.
I remember I was driving past the Seventh-day Adventists on the way to Marquette once on a Saturday, and I was like, "Why are they at church right now?"
Yeah,
like, I forgot
weird
that they were Saturday worshipers.
I mean, do you know why we have church on Sunday?
Because that's the day that Jesus rose.
Yeah, that's right. So Sunday's the first day of the week, which sometimes we don't think of it. We almost think of Monday as being the first day because it's like when your week starts. But yeah, Sunday is the first day of the week. And in the New Testament, it says that in the book of Acts, it says the disciples were gathered on the first day of the week. And of course, that's when Jesus rose from the dead. And that's why they continued to gather on the first day to celebrate the resurrection. Now, it didn't really become like an official thing until the time of Constantine. So who was Constantine?
Istanbul is not Constantinople.
Constantinople?
It's a song. It's in Turkey, Constantinople. He's like the emperor who like spread Christianity.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Constantinople was named after him. So he built, basically it was the Rome of the East, I think is what they called it, or something. It was a great city and everything, but now it's what, Istanbul or something? Istanbul in Turkey. Yeah. So Constantine was he was the Christian emperor, and he was the one who brought Christianity from being a persecuted church and like a persecuted religion within the Roman Empire to making it so that it was the religion of the empire. And it's he's a very interesting historical figure. One of the most interesting in the history of the church. And also one of the ones that it's like people don't know what to do with him, because was he really a Christian, or was he like kind of a political Christian, like where he was just doing it to sort of gain favor from the Christians? It's hard to know. He had a vision when they were going into a battle. He supposedly saw a vision in the sky with the key rho, which is like, it looks like an XR, which is in the Greek language, it's the first two letters of Jesus Christ's name. Anyway, he saw the key rho thing in the sky, supposedly, and he heard a voice, I think it was, that said, "In this sign you shall conquer," or something like that. And he might even saw a sign of a cross too. And so that's the story from Constantine, that he saw the sign of the cross and the sign of Christ in the sky. And God told him that you're going to win through Jesus Christ. And he did. He went to some bridge. They had like a battle on a bridge, Melvian Bridge or something. And they took over the whole army and they won, and he came to power and stuff. And so he never forgot that, apparently. And so that's the story of Constantine, like how his conversion. But then other people say, well, he wasn't really a Christian. He was never baptized until his deathbed, or maybe never. And so like there's question whether he was a legit Christian or not. But certainly somebody who changed the world and changed the whole Roman Empire. He Christianized it. Anyway, all of that to say, Sunday became a day of worship through Constantine. That was one of his things. Is he made it like the official thing, like you worship on Sunday. And so we've been going to church on Sunday in the Christian church ever since then. And with the exception of Jehovah's Witness and some other groups. But okay, we had to cut for a little bit, but now we're back. So
Mormons.
So Mormons. Yeah, you
Yeah,
have a question about Mormons, hey?
I have a lot of questions about Mormons. Um,
Well, I do too. I might not have any answers about Mormons.
do they go to their temples or whatever they're called on Sundays? Or like when do they worship their worship service? It's probably not even a worship service. I don't know what it is, but yeah, do they go to their
Oh,
temples on Sundays or is it like a weekday
yeah.
thing?
I think it's on Sunday. Yeah, they go to church on Sunday, I think. Yeah.
So is
And they
it
have a temple. And so Mormons are very related to Jehovah's or to Seventh-day Adventists because they're sort of a product of the same time period
yeah.
with the middle 1800s, late 1800s with like a lot of crazy end time stuff. And so what you
Joseph
had
Smith.
is Joseph Smith, a guy out in New York, I think it was, and he
Yeah.
saw a vision of like some golden tablets and stuff. His
Even though
whole
they
thing
were
is
in
like returning to a lot of the Old Testament stuff. Again, it's the same thing as Seventh-day Adventists where they've returned to a lot of Old Testament stuff, except for Joseph Smith. He added a lot of things to the Bible. The Book of Mormon is like, it's got some crazy stuff in there.
Yeah. Well,
one of the things is like
yeah.
there's like heavenly marriage. So you get married in heaven. And they believe in polygamy, which is like when you have
Yeah.
more than one wife.
Well,
And
don't they
everything.
not believe that anymore because the government was coming to shut them down?
Yeah, that's
And
true.
then
So
the
like,
leader got a mysterious vision again and was like,
yeah,
"Oh,
so
we actually don't do that
Salt Lake
anymore."
City, Utah is like the center of Mormonism.
Mm-hmm.
So Joseph Smith, I think he was killed in Missouri or somewhere. Like he was killed by a mob, and which kind of tells you what some of his religion like caused a lot of chaos and stuff. But
Yeah.
anyway, Brigham Young was the second in command who really took over the religion, and they went west. They went like they were pretty much chased out west because they were crazy people. They chased them out west, and they set up shop in Salt Lake City, Utah, which there was like nothing there. I mean, it was kind of like a desert, the Great Salt Lake and everything, and they built a city there. I mean, Salt Lake City was built by the Mormons,
It's still
basically.
there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's still there. You got
So big.
BYU, Brigham Young University, is out there, and yeah. So the Mormons they're really a interesting group of people. They've had a lot of problems in their history, and the polygamy caused them a big issue, and that was really what they were running from. And then the federal government showed up, and they kind of were surrounding the city, and they were getting ready to crack down on their polygamy because it's against the law, really, that you can have like all kinds of wives. It caused a big legal problem for the U.S. government. So they were coming to crack down on it, and the Mormons caught wind of that, and then all of a sudden they magically, well, not magically, but they suddenly got a new revelation from God that they don't do polygamy anymore. So conveniently, they stopped right as they were about to get cracked down on from the government. So, so the biggest Mormon churches, and I use that term loosely, because they're not really Christian. They're not Christians because they don't believe in the Trinity. You know, you got to believe the creed, the Trinity, to be a Christian.
Well, do they just believe that Jesus was a prophet?
Yeah, they believe in Jesus. They believe he was a prophet.
And like a great
They
man
believe in some kind of like atonement, even that Jesus took care of your sins and stuff. Where they get in trouble is where they don't believe that Jesus is the Son of God. They believe Jesus was created, and of course, you know, we can't go there. Jesus is the Son of God. It says that right in beginning of the Gospel of John. In the beginning was the Word was with God, the Word was God. So Jesus is the incarnate Word, meaning that he's God living here in a body with us. Anyway, the Mormon church, it's called the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Sounds very Christian.
Yeah.
And so that's the problem. But it's very persuasive. Like if they get a hold of you and they start talking to you, and then they start making it sound good, because everything they're about is like really good sounding, like moral teachings, and you don't drink alcohol, you don't have premarital sex, you don't. They live very moral lives, and so for that reason, it sounds like, oh yeah, we can get on board with this. And another thing they're really good at is mission work. Oh man, they are good at mission work. The Mormon church there in Utah, BYU, I think actually, they have this whole program where they send out missionaries, and they send them out, like they churn out, it's something like thousands of them a week, I think, is the average missionaries, the amount of missionaries that go through there. And I think a missionary spends 4 months there or something, and they teach them foreign languages. They send them all over the world. They prepare them for like whatever culture they're going into. I mean, that's a very effective method of doing mission work. And I think we would benefit from taking some pointers from how they do mission work. So anyway, that was kind of a tangent.
Yeah.
So we were looking up how to do these podcasts, because neither of us know what we're doing.
Yeah.
We're just kind of winging it. And one of the things it said to allow yourselves to just go on tangents. So we're allowing ourselves to take tangents. But
in the rabbit trail.
Yeah, rabbit trails. So what have we covered? We've covered a little bit of ground. I think we started with non-denominations.
Mormons,
Seventh-day Adventists,
a little bit of Jehovah's Witness,
a little bit. Yeah. So what else, Ella? How's school going? Let's talk about school a little bit.
School started.
Yeah, it's starting. When is it?
September 8th, maybe.
Yeah. So you're going into your junior year.
Yeah. Apparently, it's gonna be hard.
Yeah.
I heard that junior year is really bad.
Well, I wouldn't know. I never went to school.
Yeah, you homeschool.
Yeah, so that's another conversation that we have. Ella gives me a hard time that I'm homeschooled. But let's talk about homeschool versus public school for a bit. I think you face a lot of things in your life going to public school that I didn't have to face when I was your age, because I was fairly sheltered. Yeah, I was homeschooled. So, and for some reason we have to say that like in a certain tone.
Yeah. Like what?
Yeah.
I can't think of the word.
So, yeah, I think you've been exposed to probably a lot of different things than I was exposed to when I was 16, let's say. Like my worldview was pretty sheltered. We used a Christian curriculum, and very conservative Christian home, and so like I didn't have a lot of other influences and ideas that I was challenged with when I was young. And so I think for that reason, like you're in public school and you've had like opposing worldviews that you've come right face to face with in public school, with the curriculum and with the cultural things that different moral standards and everything that people have. So let's talk about a few of those. Like, what are some things that you're facing in public school, or maybe coming into your junior year here, that that these are directly opposed to like my worldview and my faith and how I believe as a Christian, and how, maybe once you tell me what those are, then we can talk about like how do you deal with it, and sort of how do you process it.
Well, I think most of the classes that I've been taking this year are kind of past that point, because I'm taking like chemistry and business and stuff. I'm taking quite a few business classes actually, and then I have American government and economics, so that might be a little bit different. And But other than that, it's like standard classes like math and English, and there's not really many opposing worldviews in those, I feel
That's
like.
true. You're pretty safe with math and English, eh?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter what you believe about God, really, to do math. I mean,
Yeah,
when
it's
you look
just
at mathematics, it's actually the Muslims are the ones that really did a lot of the advances in mathematics. So, we would look at that as Christians and say that that's something anybody can teach.
mhm.
And just with the reason that God gave us in
Mhm.
our intellect, I guess you'd say, that's something that God created humans with.
Yeah.
Whether or not they have faith in Him, they can still get by and do math. That's
Yeah.
awesome, eh? Which is kind of good news because honestly, I don't, when I go fly on an airplane or, well, I don't know how much airplane pilots do math, but I think you got to be smart to fly an airplane or
Probably.
anything that you're trusting like an engineer and somebody who's needed to do math. It's good that I don't have to do an interview and say like, "Are you a Christian?" Because,
Like if
boy,
you're
if you're
not a
not, this
Christian, you
this
might
bridge
not be
might.
doing your math right.
Yeah, who
And
built this bridge? Were they Christians? So, I mean,
yeah.
that's the thing. Like, yeah, math. I think you're safe with math, right?
Mhm.
So, and language, I think it's
Yeah. Not.
English. You're pretty safe. I don't know what other influences there's going to be.
I feel like last year was probably more because I had biology.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think biology is a big one. Yeah.
Mhm. And then
So, well, let's talk about it for a minute. So, like, biology, how is it? What things did you cover in biology in school that you felt like uh, were like opposed to your worldview as a Christian?
mhm. Well, we did the thing on evolution. We didn't spend a really long time on it, but
Okay.
evolution. We didn't really talk
Yeah. See,
much
now we're
about the
covering
Big
some
Bang
of
or
our living
anything,
room. These were some of our
but
living room topics. So we did cover
mhm.
evolution as she was going through
We've been
biology.
covering evolution for years. Because
Yeah. It
since
started in
like,
middle school, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
sixth grade, I think was the first time I
Yeah.
actually encountered it,
So
being
let's
taught.
hit evolution a little bit. So, what is it?
Um,
Kind of give it in a nutshell.
I have to go back and remember everything. So it's like, I don't know, some sort of moss or something came out of the water on Earth. So I'm going to like when it came, and then there's somehow life formed, and then the life went onto land, and then evolved into a whole bunch of different creatures, which evolved into other creatures, and they kept like changing because like natural disasters would like split apart different groups, and then they would turn into new species, and then just like new different things, and then that's where humans came from eventually. But it's
Okay.
just taken
Yeah.
millions and millions of years of just little
How
changes.
long? How many
How
years?
many years?
Yeah.
Millions, billions, lots of years.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And there's different types of it too. There's the fast type, and then there's like the slow type where it's like over time, like little things change in each generation. It takes multiple generations before
okay.
it's
Yeah.
completely different. And then there's
Isn't
that's
it
macro and
isn't
micro
macro
and
is the
evolution.
big one, like
Yeah.
macroevolution? And
It's
then,
well,
well,
that's
isn't
the one. Microevolution is tiny changes over a long period of time.
is
Macroevolution
that
is,
also adaptation? Do they call that
I think
adaptation or
it's like
something?
adaptation.
Okay. Yeah.
But and then yeah, macroevolution's the one where it's like the natural disasters I think would mainly cause it is there's big amounts of change over a smaller period of time.
Okay.
Like
Yeah.
the kettle wells moths thing. I think that's
Okay.
more
What's that?
adaptation.
What's Kettlewell's
And
moth?
it's some guy in England. His name was something Kettlewell. And it was when like the factories industrial era, and so
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
was all like black, and there's these moths that he would notice, and there is before everything, and they were white to blend in with the white birch bark.
Mm-hmm.
Then everything started turning black, and then slowly all the moths started turning black, like pretty quickly too,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
of like genetic mutations and stuff.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, and
so
then there's
the
like
survival of the
du-
fittest is
okay,
what was
that's
going
like
on there.
a core
Because the
like
black moths could blend
teaching,
in
right?
better with the soot. And so
Yeah.
then they had more babies, and then the babies were black too. And then they they blended in.
That's interesting you brought up the Industrial Revolution. Yeah, so that was like the time at the end of the 1800s when the world was like, well, it started in England, right? And they were starting to produce things, factories and mass produce things. And um, yeah, that's when industry really started. Modern industry really took off in that period, and then it came over here to America. And they invented things like repeatable parts and mass producing things and stuff.
Yeah.
So, and that's interesting that evolution came from like
In
the
that time
same
period.
time. Yeah, like what's the guy's name? Darwin, Charles Darwin. Yeah, yeah. Charles Darwin was definitely a product of the Industrial Revolution. He lived in that time period, and I think it shaped his worldview. You know,
Probably.
and so it's just interesting that when you look at how he views the world, he views it like a machine.
Yeah.
It's very you'd say mechanistic. Like there's a process. There's processes that unfold, and there's a it's almost like a big machine. And so he views creation, or he calls it evolution, as a mechanical process that like everything came into existence through it. And so he's obviously looking at his world, and he's like interpreting everything through that lens, which kind of tells you that's how things go. Like we're shaped by our world. The time we live in gives us our view of everything. Yeah, it did the same thing for Charles Darwin. But anyway, so you learn evolution in, well, throughout school, throughout starting in middle school. How did that oppose your worldview? Like, how was that against your Christian faith? And
Well,
yeah, what would you say?
we believe that God created the earth and that it wasn't really through a process of just chance that we're here, but it was like intentional, and God made us all with like purpose.
Yeah, yeah, which is what the Bible says, right? I mean, when you read in Genesis, it's pretty clear. There's a very personal thing of like God is actually forming Adam with his own hands.
Yeah. And breathing his breath
breathes right into his nostrils and gives him life, and he becomes a living being. And then so I shared this thing on Facebook recently. It was on the Babylon Bee, but it was
your favorite.
this picture of Adam in the garden, and it says, God created man, and after 2 minutes he realized man's gonna need a helper.
That's the one with him walking around with the banana, right?
Yeah, he's just kind of wandering around with a banana. So man's gonna need a helper. Yeah. And so that's how it is. Yeah, God created Adam, but then in the story in Genesis, it says he put Adam to sleep when he realized Adam, it wasn't good that he was alone. He made him go to sleep, and then God actually formed Eve, the woman, out of one of Adam's ribs. He made a whole person out of his rib, which is kind of cool because when you think of male and female, it's like, yeah, they belong together. And that's why marriage is really just the joining of those two things back together.
And the missing rib.
So my grandpa, Edwin Seppala, he had this thing where he'd tease people that were dating and stuff. And he's like, yeah, so did you find the rib that fits? And so it's just kind of how that goes. Yeah. So anyway, so back to the evolutionary thing, and so the fact that they teach evolution is a chance thing. And in the scripture we read that God created us, and it's a very personal thing. You know, he did it himself. And so yeah, those things create two like way different views, don't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is a subject I've been interested in a lot lately, and I'm not sure I know what to think of all the theories that are out there. But one thing I found really interesting was there's some people who are Christians who believe that like God created the world through evolution,
Oh yeah, you
which is kind
mentioned
of
that
weird.
before.
I'm like, I that kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, really? You can believe that God created it through
Mm-hmm.
evolution? And it's almost like they're trying to join the two, like the scientific worldview and the Christian worldview,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find some
Like
common
common
ground.
ground.
And yeah, with
Jinx,
the
knock on wood, you owe me a Coke.
a Coke,
Yeah.
Mountain Dew. I also said
Uh,
Mountain Dew. You're saying Coke?
yeah, it's Coke.
No, it's Mountain Dew. Jinx, you owe me a Mountain Dew. I've
Uh-uh.
been saying that for 37 years.
I've been saying it for 16.
37 years. Oh.
Mm.
So,
Well, anyway.
what did we jinx on?
Common ground,
Yeah, so
evolution.
trying to find a common ground between science and Christianity, and I'm not quite satisfied with what they're doing with it. The main problem I
Mm-hmm.
have is that one of the main things with evolution is death, right?
Yeah.
Like, because there's a survival of the fittest. So if you have
Yeah.
survival, that implies that you have non-survival, right? You have
Yeah.
like a
A
whole
lot.
like part of the species are always dying to like get to the next thing, and then it's
Mm-hmm.
advancing and whatever.
Well, the
That's how
next
their
thing is
theory works.
always
But like,
changing too.
so how would that even fit with the Bible? With like in the Bible, you have Adam and Eve, and they didn't die until after they ate from the fruit. So creation
Mm-hmm.
has already happened. So if God created the world through evolution, death would have had to have been a thing for millions of years before Adam and Eve,
Yeah.
humans, at that point already evolved. They would have had to, death would have
Mm-hmm.
had to have been
Yeah.
a thing
Something would happen.
before sin and before the curse came. And so that's like my biggest hang up with that thing. Like, I don't think you can join those two
Well,
things
could it have
together.
been before they ate? Because they never tells us how long they were in the garden. So it could have been while they were still in the garden before death was.
Hmm.
But then, yeah, because you need to die and have offspring for evolution to happen. Because evolution doesn't happen in one organism; it happens in a whole tree of organisms.
Yeah, it's fascinating to look at. And so here's another thing I want to say about creationism and evolution and stuff is I think in our day and age, we've been like it's almost been just hammered so hard for so many years that you have to believe in young 7,000-year-old Earth, or young Earth is what we call it.
Mm-hmm.
7-day literal creation, a literal reading of Genesis 1 through 3, and that whole thing. Like, if you don't believe that, then you might as well, you're not a Christian because you don't believe the Bible, and there's just no other way to look at it.
Well,
And
as long as
and
you believe Jesus,
it's
it's
almost
fine.
like that's been like, to some degree, it's almost like overshadowed Jesus and the redemption
Mm-hmm.
and everything. Like
Yeah.
when you talk to some people, and like we went to the Ark encounter. Remember going to
Yeah.
the Ark?
I
It's
do.
kind of cool to see the huge Ark. They made it the same size as the one that's described in
Mm-hmm.
Genesis and stuff. And it was really cool to go and see the exhibit. It's quite an attraction. But it's like when you go through there, you almost like Jesus is
There's
like
nothing about
added to
Jesus
the
in there,
story.
really.
There's a little section that's got like the fall and redemption, and there's like they set some things aside for that, but the whole thing is about, like, you have to believe in this worldview or this interpretation of Genesis. If you don't, then like you're not a Christian. Like, that's the
Mm-hmm.
deciding point, and not believing in Jesus, in the redemption of Jesus, which is what the scripture says. Like, for example, we said that we're Lutherans and
Mm-hmm.
we're a traditional confessional church where we have a set of beliefs. And the main thing we believe is the Apostles' Creed.
Yeah.
We believe the 3 articles of the Creed. And what do those three articles say?
I believe in God the Father. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I believe in the Holy Spirit.
Yeah, belief in the Trinity. So nowhere in there does it say like you have to believe how God created the world or how old the world is. If you believe the world is 4.5 billion years or whatever, then you're not a Christian. Like if that's the deciding point, that doesn't say that.
Yeah, and the Creator just says maker of heaven and earth.
God created the world. That is our belief. And also Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit. And Jesus is at the center of the whole thing. And that's what we believe as Christians. You can't just like throw someone out and say they're not a Christian if they believe the earth is a certain age.
Yeah.
You know, that's not the main thing. So anyway, I don't know. That was a kind of another tangent. All right, Ella. Anything else? So how did it challenge? Oh yeah, I asked you how it challenged your faith. So it challenged your faith because it presented a different like way of interpreting how we got here, and that is a major thing. Yeah.
The way that they present it's a very logical kind of sounding thing, like the machine aspect of it. How it just made sense to me when they were teaching me in like 6th grade, especially. It's like, well, this makes sense, but it doesn't correlate with what I believe. Because it makes sense that over time there would be so many tiny changes that ends up being a completely different thing.
Yeah, especially when you can observe it like in a small scale, like you said, the micro thing in the Galapagos Islands.
Yeah, the
birds that their beaks grew and stuff because like, their environment changed. Yeah, so
there's evidence.
I mean, there's things that it's like, hey, that kind of makes sense. Like this could happen. But the problem is as with all science, you have like the whole scientific method, which helped me out with what that is. You
make a hypothesis.
Okay.
Or something. Or you think of something, you do a little bit of research, make a hypothesis. You test your hypothesis over and over again, and then if it doesn't match, the results don't match your hypothesis, you change your hypothesis. And you have to try it over and over.
Yeah,
and over
so it's
again.
like it's a loop, right?
Yeah.
You keep doing it and doing it until you arrive at like a scientific conclusion. Yeah. So the problem I have with the whole theory of the age of the earth and evolution and everything is like, how do you set the lab up? Like,
you can't.
When you're talking about age of the earth, like
be able to observe
like, most of us are like, less than 100 years old. And we're talking about things that, millions of years. And so you're making a lot of assumptions that it's like, I don't know.
Well, something you can't observe.
Yeah, it's not
and
observable.
Observation is a big thing in science too.
And so I think no matter what science anyone is doing, you have to realize that it's pretty limited. It's limited, first of all, to our ability as humans to understand it and see things for what they are. And it's limited by, well, I guess our abilities. We can't time travel and check out like, how things were thousands of years ago. And so we're pretty limited in our science. And that's where when we talk about the Word, we talk about the Bible, we know that this is a greater source of information than our own interpretation of the world and observing the world and doing science. So it's a greater thing to trust in than our ability to observe. The Word is always going to be like the thing. It's like that's the foundation of everything, and we understand that it's all about Jesus Christ, and it tells us that straight up. It tells us in Colossians, I think it is, that I should look it up. In the first chapter, it says that everything was made by Jesus. So like the whole creation is about Jesus. So I mean, you can try to figure out how did it all get here and how long's it been here and ask all the questions. And I think there's a place to do that. I mean, we shouldn't be like threatened that scientists are drawing conclusions that the world is this old, or theories about biology and stuff. That doesn't threaten Christianity,
Yeah.
because we have something more solid anyway. We have the Word. We have what it's all about. Jesus is the center of the whole world. So let's read what this says here. It's amazing. Okay, listen up. Colossians 1, in verse 15. It says, He is, Jesus, is the image of the invisible God. Wow. So he's the image of the invisible God. So if you want to see God, you look at Jesus. That's what that's saying. And he's the firstborn of all creation, for by him all things were created, in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, all things were created through him and for him. And he is, and this is important, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head of the body, and he keeps going on. It's amazing stuff. You got to read Colossians. But anyway, so the whole thing is that Jesus is the point of creation. He's the reason we exist. I mean, that's what that's saying.
Yeah.
And he's the only reason the world's still here. So it's like, yeah, we can do science. We can understand something about the creation. But Jesus is he's the secret sauce to everything, right? I mean, so that's the beauty of Christianity, is it lets us be simple. It lets us be kids, really.
Yeah.
We're God's kids. We're children of God. We don't understand everything, and God does. And it lets us just let him be in charge. Jesus is in charge of this. And we don't necessarily have to have all the answers, which I think is the greatest news ever. I'm like, I don't have all the answers. And actually, something my dad used to say, your grandpa, which, by the way, he died when Ella was how old?
4, maybe?
4 years old. Yeah, my dad passed away of cancer. And so Ella got to meet him, and Ephraim, I think, knows him a little bit, or knew him a little bit. But anyway, so here's a little bit of what your grandpa said. He said that the older I get, the less I know. I remember him saying that all the time. And it actually kind of bugged me when I was young. I'm like, but why do you always say that, Dad? And now I've come to realize why he said it, because it's true. You realize as you learn, you're like, wow, I don't know anything. And you trust more and more in the Lord's, his wisdom and his word, because you're lost without it. Yeah. He knows everything. So anyway, that's I guess where you have to end up at the end of every discussion about evolution or creationism, whatever. If you don't end up at Jesus Christ, you took a wrong turn somewhere. I mean, like, you're on the wrong road, folks. If you're sitting there all stressed out about how old the world is, and you're not ending up reading Colossians, it's like, yeah, go read Colossians. that's where you got to end up. So, okay, well, let's talk about any other things that are maybe you've struggled with. Well, maybe not struggled with, but opposing worldviews that you've been faced with in public school, let's call it.
Well, there's like friends who don't have the same politics and stuff.
So
and like even teachers.
So they didn't vote for Bernie Sanders like you?
I didn't vote.
So yeah. How does that show up? Like, where have you encountered that kind of thing?
At lunch.
Okay, at lunch. What I mean is, like, what was the issue? Are you talking about political issues like abortion, or maybe the gender issues or something like that?
Like, there's abortions come up a few times. Who you voted for, and then some Some people, they just don't really want to listen to anything you have to say. Like if you want to share your opinion, they just snub you. No, and they
Oh,
just
really?
like don't let you finish what you're saying or
Yeah.
just completely ignore you. Like they're
Yeah.
not very open-minded.
So this tells me that you actually talk about this stuff with them, eh?
Well, yeah.
Yeah. So how does that conversation start at lunch? And
Usually something that Senior Bay said.
okay, so one of your teachers, like,
Yeah, or yeah,
yeah.
a teacher says something or we read something and then someone will bring it up at lunch and then it'll just spiral from there.
Okay, so different political things.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you do at that point? Do you just tell them like, well, I'm a Christian? Or like how does the conversation go usually?
Well, usually it's them doing a lot of talking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
About what
Are
they
they trying to
think.
influence you to like believe
I
their
don't know.
way
I
or
think most of it I think it's just them ranting. Like they're mad and they just need to let it out and so they just rant about it.
they just rant, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes they say
Yeah.
things and it's like, well, you're obviously you might not know that much about what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's just your opinion and you're sharing it and it doesn't really need to be shared.
Yeah.
Especially because you are saying things that they're not true at all.
Yeah. So that's an interesting topic in itself. Like, I mean, we could do a whole segment on abortion.
Mm-hmm.
We could go down that whole road, and I think we should. But it's going to take probably more time than we have here.
Yeah.
So let's say political issues. You've talked about those with your friends at
Mm-hmm.
school, and kind of have hit a roadblock
Yeah.
with some of them. And has that challenged your faith at all? Or, I mean, it's presented a different, like an opposing worldview. We're calling it, where
Mm-hmm.
somebody's like, well, I
I
believe
disagree.
abortion is fine, and you're like, whoa, because I always thought that was murder. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a now you have to deal with that in your own mind, like, how do I relate to this person who's looking at this a whole different way than I am, and doesn't have the same moral like standards I have of like abortion being murder, and murder is against the fifth commandment, like,
It's
you
against the
know.
law, against
Yeah.
everything, right?
And so you're having
So
to wrestle with that.
I
Yeah.
guess
So
usually at the end I just like think to myself like, oh well, we have different opinions, but it's
yeah.
okay. Because
So
in the end, yeah,
agree to disagree on the
yeah.
politics. I think that's a healthy way to approach it, even as an adult. And you're gonna encounter it more and more as you get
Mm-hmm.
into the workplace or college or wherever you go. It's like, yeah, not everyone sees it the same.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're thinking that the whole world is like conservative Christians with like
You
a
need the
same
wake up
worldview,
call.
like, yeah, you're gonna be in for a world of hurt, because
Mm-hmm.
it is not. I mean, it's good that probably in a way that you're having to deal with it already. You're
Mm-hmm.
wrestling with that, and you're forming your own view, um,
Mm-hmm.
and it's being challenged, and you're having to
Like
support
defend
it with
it,
the
yeah,
scripture, and actually it's being proven to you. All right, so we've covered quite a bit of ground here, actually.
yeah.
Let's kind of recap. What do we talked about?
Non-denominationalism,
Non-denomination or denominations, the non-denominationalism, kind of some
um,
denominations: Seventh Day Adventists,
Mormons,
Mormons, Constantine,
yeah,
little Roman Empire history in there. Um, then we sort of talked about different worldviews,
yeah.
quite a bit about
School,
evolution,
evolution,
school.
yeah,
Yeah, how
yeah.
school's going for you. Um, Different worldviews
Mm-hmm.
that you've come in contact with in public school. And yeah, so I think that's a good place to wrap it up
Yeah.
today. And plus, I think we're ready to go
Cool.
home and get something to eat. So, but I think for next time, what should we talk about next time?
Oh, songs, I think is what we were gonna do.
Yeah, we're going to talk about music, because her and I are not on the same page with hymns.
Uh,
She's got, let's just say, quite a bit less favorable view of
okay.
hymns than I
It
do.
makes it sound like I hate them.
Well, so I'm like all about hymns. I love them, and Ella's like, uh, she comes home from church and she's like, "What did we sing today? What was that?" So we're gonna
Uh,
talk about some hymns next time, and maybe even some praise music, and we're gonna kind of explore music. Yeah,
mhm.
Christian music, I think
Yeah.
mostly. We might get into some tangents, but we'll find out.
Yeah. Well,
But so,
hopefully, because that
okay,
sounds
well,
so
thank you
good.
guys for joining us with our little living room talk here.
Hmm.
And yeah, God bless you and good to see you.